everyone. Welcome to Land and Sea. I'm Jane Adey. We're nearing the end of our 60th season on the air. 6 decades of sharing the stories of Newfoundland and Labrador. Anyone who's had the opportunity to work on this show can tell you that a job that allows you to travel this province and connect with its people isn't a job at all. It's a privilege. If you're traveling on the Burin Peninsula near the top of the Boot, there is scenery that makes the drive a treat for the eyes. Whether it's reminders of the work life in the community of Harbour Mill, or stunning rock formations like this one on Broad Cove Beach, or the charming local color of Little Harbour East. You'd best keep your camera handy. And you'd be foolish not to venture off the main road into this vivid town, too.
I've been to places that are as pretty as Baillargent, but I don't think I've ever been anywhere that's prettier than Baillargent.
Sound familiar? It should. That voice told Land and Sea stories for almost 30 years.
It's supposed to rain this afternoon, ma'am, but I think it's supposed to be fine for the next 2 days.
Pauline Thornhill retired in 2022, and these days, this is where you'll find her, at home with her mom in Baillargent.
It won't be long drying out. Once the rain is off, get an afternoon of sunshine and a little breath of air, and that'll be done. That'll be dry.
People would ask me, what are you going to do after you retire? Because everybody thinks you're supposed to have a plan. Well, my only plan really was hanging out more in Baillargent and spending more quality time with Mom.
Pauline's father, Roy, died in 2009. Now, Pauline and her mom, Frida, keep the shed stocked with wood just the way Roy would have wanted.
She'll rind all of her wood just so, you know, the wet bark comes off and it dries faster. She's fanatical about wood. Yeah, she's definitely carrying on in my dad's tradition.
The traditions for the Thornhill family here started back in 1973 when they moved from Ontario. Pauline was actually born in Toronto, but Frida and Roy were from the Burin Peninsula and decided their kids would grow up in rural Newfoundland. So back they came. Pauline was delighted.
I can tell you, I definitely always was a country mouse. That's for sure. I was always gravitated to rural. I remember as soon as you hit that dirt road, I'd get excited because it seemed like there was always something really good at the end of a dirt road. And we'd come to Baillargent, and of course Nan and Pop were still alive then, and my great-uncle Bub was still alive, and it was just, my grandparents in Burin were still alive, and it was just this whole different world. And it was fantastic.
And TV wasn't a big draw for a young girl who loved traditional ways and the outdoors. But there was one show on CBC that piqued Pauline's interest.
It seems to be a stiff old wheel today. My arms, I suppose, are a bit stiff.
I do remember this one scene from one particular show, and I don't even know why it stayed with me, but it was a shot of this elderly lady in her kitchen. She was a gray-haired lady, and she had this big spinning wheel, and it fascinated me. I remember that to this day. Don't ask me why, but it did. So I guess on some unconscious level, it was getting through to me even back then.
There will always be jobs taking care of people in their own homes. He says the new strategy is nothing
Fast forward through journalism school and several years as a reporter with Here and Now Supper Hour News at CBC.
For CBC News, I'm Pauline Thornhill.
I got reacquainted with Land and Sea and realized that these human interest stories rooted in Outport, Newfoundland and coastal Labrador, I mean, it was just, it was my dream job.
Pauline's very first story took her to the Northern Peninsula, to the isolated community of Harbour Deep in 1992. She wanted to do what Land and Sea has always done, to shine a light on a unique tradition before it was lost.
Ask anybody who knows anything about traditional dance, and they'll tell you Harbour Deep is famous for one thing, the goat dance. Even though it's not danced regularly anymore, the goat is still alive here. There are still some who remember how to do it, and they can still pack a hall on short notice. They say the goat dance belongs to Harbour Deep. People here call it their own. A generation ago, hardly even that, this was the only dance done in Harbour Deep. And as far as anyone can tell, it never spread outside.
I've never heard of it being danced anywhere else. Well, it might be a dance similar to it, but I've never seen or heard of it danced exactly like it is here. And I've certainly never heard it called a goat before anywhere else.
Where did the name come from, anyway?
I don't know, girl. I've asked that question a good many times. The only thing I've come up with is because it was so wild. It's a sort of wild. Depends on who's dancing. If it's a young crowd, you know, as wild as a goat.
By the time that first story was done, Pauline knew she had found her show and her people.
That ordinary person who had no hidden agenda, they were just, like you say, telling their own story. That was the kind of person that Land and Sea was that we gravitated to in the first place. Just everyday people doing extraordinary things, and sometimes they didn't even realize they were extraordinary because it was just their life and they were living it. And again, would sit down and tell you their stories.
We'll hear more of Pauline's memories and some memories from the crew, too, when Land and Sea returns. It's summer in Bay Largent. What used to be prime season to shoot Land and Sea shows for Pauline Thornhill. Now it's time spent helping her mom keep the backyard grass from getting out of control. Pauline's days are her own, but thoughts of her career in television are never ever far from her mind.
This province is full of really interesting characters. But those aren't the only people I miss. I miss the people I worked with, you know, because we had some great times together. We had great adventures. I mean, we made a lot of memories.
One of Pauline's most memorable adventures, a trip that took her and the crew to northern Labrador to the majestic Saglek Fjord.
The weather's finally broken, and the fjord seems softer, friendlier.
We were like 2 days longliner ride north of Nain, and we were camped out in this fjord in Labrador tents.
They were along with a fishing crew from Nain. The men were catching char using a fairly new technique, a weir net.
Every fish on its way upriver to spawn will be caught.
The char took a long time to show up, but in the meantime, there was plenty of adventure.
You'd have to be in the Saglek Fjord to really appreciate the grandeur of it, and you felt so small and insignificant compared to everything you were seeing around you, you know.
The goal on Land and Sea shoots is to bring viewers with you to see those surroundings and get the best show possible for the loyal audience.
Everybody who I worked with, they were all professionals. You know, they were all really good at their job because you can't shoot Land and Sea with a cell phone, you know. There's a standard, there's a bar of production that you strive to meet. And every technician I ever worked with did that, no matter what the challenges were.
Ted Dillon has shot lots of stories over the years. Ted says getting into small communities is the dream job for any cameraman, and for him, even more so. Ted grew up a city boy downtown.
Being the ultimate townie from St. John's, no roots around the bay, you know, out of town to me was La Manche. So to go on a shoot like with Henry Vokey, one last schooner, you know, an 82-year-old man who built this schooner. I think Pauline had to tell me what a schooner was. To go to Nain, Labrador in winter and get there and be with the Webb family. And, you know, it was March and it was cold, and that trip in itself was a huge experience. We get off the plane and I say to Pauline, is someone picking us up? And she's like, no, Teddy, here's the keys to your snow machine. And I'm like, what do you want me to do with that? But at the end of the 10 days, it was like I came from Nain, right?
And sometimes the crew comes away with more than just memories. At the end of his Nain adventure, Ted came home with a new best friend. Every trip in every community leaves lasting impressions.
We're staying in Harbour Mill for this show. I've never been down this way before. I'm in awe. And I imagine even in bad weather, it's still beautiful down here. So yeah, we're kind of lucky. We're very lucky. We're probably the luckiest people in the CBC.
The scenery is one perk, and the kind welcome that local people extend to the Land and Sea crew, well, that is Newfoundland and Labrador hospitality at its finest.
We're rock stars. We're rock stars. People love to see us coming because we're there to tell their stories. Be it tragic stories, be it funny stories, be it quirky stories. Yeah, it's pretty spectacular.
Speaking of actual rock stars, Sandy Morris has a loyal following in Newfoundland and Labrador, but even his days as the popular guitarist in the wonderful Grand Band don't compare to his Land and Sea fame.
I've been on TV since 1965. That was my first go at it. And I've really been on, not necessarily every single year, but most, you know, all through the 70s, all through the 80s, the 90s, and now Land and Sea since the 90s. What people recognize me for is Land and Sea. In fact, I was at the supermarket today, and Mrs. said, I see his people staring, and I told them, yes, boy, it's him. And she said, you're known for the opening of Land and Sea, right? The opening of Land and Sea. That's what I'm known for.
Sandy has composed music for Land and Sea shows for 30 years now. This season, we asked him to re-record the opening theme for our 60th anniversary. Most assume Sandy is the composer. In fact, it's a piece of TV stock music that was brought in from Toronto decades ago for Land and Sea. No known composer, no known publisher. Yet, it has become a sentimental provincial refrain.
People just love that theme. I mean, they love that music so much.
What do they tell you about what it makes them feel?
They tell me it makes them feel peaceful. I've had people ask me if they could have it played at their funeral, and like really mean it, like that's. And I've heard people say, like when they hear that music, they'd be living on the mainland or something, they hear that music coming and brings them right back home again. It's amazing. It's a very powerful piece of music. Whoever wrote it, God love him, because it's made a career for me, I guarantee you that.
When Sandy writes music for a show, he lets the whole story wash over him. Guitar in hand, he's moved to create.
I just let the fingers do the talking, as it were, because it's an emotional thing.
You're inspired by the pictures
and the stories
and the interviews
and the characters and the whole works. Yeah, you know, and the pictures, of course. You know, the beauty shots of Newfoundland.
Pretty fun gig.
It's a wicked gig. I get up in the morning and I come down here, and at the end of the day, I've got a whole show, music written for a whole show and recorded. It's you know, it's great fun. I really feel good after that.
And that's what many of you tell us too. You feel good after a dose of Land and Sea. But without you sharing your stories, well, where would we be? More to come after the break.
Bob used to have all of this whole wall was stacked up with bulk salt cod, like they'd split their fish and like layer it.
Pauline Thornhill may not be hosting and producing Land and Sea anymore, but she continues to tell stories in retirement. Her friend Jane is in town, and Pauline paints a picture of what life was like growing up in Baillargent.
A lot of history in this place.
It's a lot of history in this place, I tell you. That's the original splitting table that Bub and Alec used for years.
Yeah.
Right? Remember I was telling you Alec fished with him?
Mm-hmm.
Pauline knows every small community all over the province has people who hand down their memories and experiences. She's grateful for their willingness and for their authenticity.
I think people feel safe with Land and Sea. I think people trust Land and Sea. It's one of the many, many, many things that made this job such a pleasure, as you now know, is listening to all these stories and being able to record them, and then through your show, you share them with the rest of the province and the country, really.
That old familiar dread had once more settled over Grandbank. Yet the town refused to abandon hope for the vessel, as did the loved ones of her crew. But when Tuesday came with no word from the Mist, so did the news.
When the Salvation Army officer and his wife came, that was it. They said, you know, they were gone. But you still keep looking at the window and you still keep hoping this is not true. And I've never talked about it, and I should have. I should have, for the sake of the two children.
They're willing to share, and maybe people want to talk about some of this stuff. You know, maybe people want to share their stories, and if you do, what better way of getting your story out there than through Land and Sea?
Rick Barella has listened to the stories too, possibly more intently than anyone. Rick has recorded audio for countless Land and Sea shows. He's always been impressed by the honesty and the emotion in interviews.
I mean, anybody who participates in this program really does have a strong belief that others should hear what they've gone through, and they should be, you know, they want to share it, because these are real, true stories of what everyday life can be.
I phoned St. John's Coast Guard Radio and given my position, the name of the boat, the number of crew members on board. I said, it's possible we're going to abandon ship. The ship is on fire.
Well, I did say prayers. I said, while I was putting the suits on, I said, somebody got to look out for us. I said, there's no way our whole family can be wiped out in one incident like this. I said, I don't think it was meant to be like this.
When you're working on a boat, any boat, the whole crew, they're your family. You're working together, you're living together, you're sleeping together, you know, and that's consistent, especially when you've got crew members that's been with you for a while, like 4 or 5 years. You know, you work as a family. But then again, I had my own immediate family. I had my wife, my 2 sons, and my daughter, and the fact that that was going through the back of my mind. I was going to lose the whole family, and I knew I had one daughter in. I got to stop a minute.
The Noonan family survived their ordeal, but Land and Sea has told the stories of many who didn't, some of them lost forever at sea.
And then someone said, Kelly, they'll get him tomorrow, Kelly. They'll get Danny tomorrow. And it's like the biggest blow that anyone could ever give me. I was like, what? They haven't got him. And I just fell to the floor and I just bawled and I screamed and I sobbed. And all I can remember saying is, what a sin, what a sin. He's left out in that cold ocean by himself.
Powerful interviews that have allowed the province to share in a community's grief. Many of those moments have stayed with Rick Barella.
Forthcoming beyond belief. Yeah, they really do put their hearts out right out in front of you, and it's there for on display. You know, it's magic.
Land and sea is magical for many of us, like the special places we've grown up, the way Bay Largent feels for Pauline.
Everybody needs a place like this to go to escape to get away and just soak it up, you know? Like, that's what Bay Largent is for me. It's good for your soul. I mean, it's beautiful. My family history is here. Just a way of outport life, which I love, you know, and I don't know, it's everything.
And maybe that's what Land and Sea offers so many of us, viewers and crew alike. It's our beauty, our emotion, our honesty, our culture, our language and accents, our tragedies and triumphs, all rolled up into one. It's staying true to our roots and to who we are as people. For 60 years, our show.
As long as nobody loses sight of that, you know, the fact that it is all about us, us meaning the people that we interview, I think Land and Sea will always be successful.